Budget talks on Beacon Hill, what it could mean for Barnstable. We talk with Director of Finance Mark Milne and 1st Barnstable State Representative Cleon Turner on this episode of Barnstable Today. It's Wednesday, April 17th, 2013. I'm Sarah Colvin. Last week, the House of Representatives issued its version of the fiscal 14 state budget. The House version comes in lower than Governor Patrick's proposed $34.8 billion budget at $33.8 billion. Barnstable Director of Finance Mark Milne comments.
We are, of course, we're most interested in what the local aid figures are. So what the House has included in their budget is actually bottom line, a little less generous than local aid, but that's because they don't include the income tax increases that the governor had proposed, which would significantly boost the Chapter 70 account for aid. So, however, the House did increase unrestricted general government aid a little bit more than what the governor had proposed. So it's about a $42,000 increase for Barnstable. And the Chapter 70 number is very close to what we were using to establish our budget for 2014, but well below what the governor's proposal was. So overall, the net local aid figure for Barnstable, when you take into consideration the state assessments that were charged, is about $115,000 less than what we're using to establish our budget for 2014. So we'll have to wait and see what happens with the Senate version of the budget and any reconciliation with the House version after that to see if we need to fine-tune our budget after we adopt it.
Milne says that Barnstable is still in the middle of its budget process, of course, and there's still time to adjust for any changes.
We'll be finalizing our budget very soon, however, because we will be bringing it forward to the town council at their May 16th meeting for a first reading, and so we have to finalize it within the next couple of weeks. And but like you said, by no means is this the final version, because we're still waiting to see what the Senate will do with their budget, and then of course they'll have to reconcile that with the House and then present to the governor for his approval, and of course he could make some changes to that, and then of course the House and Senate can override any changes that he makes. So we could be well into July before we see what the final state aid figures are. So but by taking a conservative approach like we have, it provides us a little flexibility to adjust for any final state adjustments that might that may come in when the final version of the budget is adopted, so that we can move forward without having to make any significant changes to our local.
Milne talks about what would happen if state aid to Barnstable does come in lower than anticipated.
What we would probably end up doing is looking at our other revenue estimates. For like right now, for example, the House version of the budget is about $115,000 less than what we're using to prepare our budget. If that were to happen, then we would probably look at our other revenue estimates like motor vehicle excise tax and other local receipts like that to see if we can increase their estimate to offset that. And we'll be much closer to the end of the fiscal year to see how those things are actually tracking to determine whether or not it's realistic to do something like that. And so that's the first thing we'll do. The second thing we'll do is if the revenues are not coming in to a degree that will allow us to do that, then we'll have to look at the expenditure side of the ledger and possibly make some reductions. But I think the former strategy should work out for us, because we are being somewhat conservative on some of those revenue estimates, because we anticipate this to happen every year, and more often than not, it does happen every year. So we have, that strategy has worked well for us in the past, and we continue to use it.
Milne says there is positive news in the budget, though, in terms of circuit breaker funding.
Good news for the House version is that they are increasing the amount of money that they're setting aside for circuit breaker. And the circuit breaker is an account that assists school departments in meeting their special education cost requirements. And so the good news there is that the additional funding should provide some additional resources for the school department to offset their special education funding expenses. So that was some positive news in the House budget. And I think there's a real recognition at the state level that is an important funding source for local school districts, and both the governor's budget and the House budget. And I project that the Senate budget will reflect that as well as a priority, and we will receive some additional funds in that account.
First Barnstable State Representative Cleon Turner talks further about the House budget. Again, that's about a little bit less than Governor Patrick's proposed financial plan.
Isn't exactly the same as the governor's budget because it doesn't propose to raise as much money as the governor was proposing to raise. And as I mentioned last week, the governor's budget is contingent upon $1.9 million in new revenue. So our budget is contingent upon far less than that. So it does have some good things and some not so good things, and obviously the not so good is that increases in various line items that seem necessary to some of us just aren't going to be there.
Representative Turner says the House's local aid package is slightly less than previous years.
Down from previous, and sometimes we have to guess the guessing game of where leadership and Ways and Means is coming from. It may be that their interest is to essentially level fund local aid, but they drop it down a little bit so that when 160 legislators start throwing in amendments, that they can tweak it up a little bit by giving some legislators who have asked for increases in local aid a little bit of a bump up. So my guess is local aid is going to come out essentially the same as last year, which is not necessarily great because obviously local communities have increases in cost just like the state government does. And when you look at local aid, you really have to look at a whole bunch of various line items in the budget. One great example is payment in lieu of taxes, which is a state line item where the state of Massachusetts does not pay the town of Barnstable or Dennis or Yarmouth taxes on state-owned land in the community, but what they do is they make a payment in lieu of taxes, which sometimes equals the tax and sometimes not quite, but it's a nice little perk for those towns that have state real estate within the community. So if that drops down and local aid stays even, then towns like Brewster, that has Nickerson State Park, for example, or Sandwich, that has Shawnee State Park, ends up actually losing money in the long run.
Representative Turner says next week the House will begin debate on the budget. Sessions are expected to last from 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. each day. Representatives at that time can add amendments to the budget. The next step in the process to go to the Senate for further revision. You can view the House proposed budget online at malegislature.gov. Well, Chief of Police Paul McDonald is holding a special meeting for those interested in learning more about the town's new problem property ordinances. Next Tuesday's meeting is geared toward educating property owners, landlords, and real estate agents about the changes to the rules and how they're designed to help property owners and the town resolve tricky issues. That meeting takes place at BPD headquarters next Tuesday, April 23rd at 10 a.m. Well, be sure to check in on BarnstableIForum.com, the town's 24-hour-a-day, 7-day-a-week place to go to share your thoughts and ideas for moving the town forward. We want your input on bicycling in town. We're even seeking photos of your favorite biking destinations. You can also weigh in on the importance of arts in our community and take a survey about trash disposal. It's available online 24/7, 365, BarnstableIForum.com. With Barnstable Today, I'm Sarah Colvin.